Life is all about relationships. Lovers, family, body, or money. How satisfied you are can be completely explained by how you relate to things around you. This is Sophie Jaffe, and together with my husband, Dr. Adi Jaffe, we are here to explore and teach you how to maximize your relationships and achieve a happier life. Let's get ignited.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ignited Podcast. I'm Adi Jaffe.
And I'm Sophie Jaffe.
And we're bringing a topic today that I feel like, Sophie, you've been navigating and honing yourself for, I don't even know, since I've known you.
Yeah.
I don't know that you were this in tune to it when we first met. Like it was floating around you and you really were coming towards it.
Absolutely. No, I don't think in the beginning I was there at all. I think I was still in a very deep struggle when I first met you.
And then since then, I feel like you've really worked on perfecting your ability to be intuitive.
Yeah. I think it takes a lot of time. I think actually my intuitive practice started way before with non-food related things.
Sure.
So just following my intuition as a child, following it as I moved into a teenager, and then like in early adulthood, late teens, all my travels, a lot of them were on my own. And especially that big trip I took in Thailand with a complete stranger pretty much, and Cambodia, like that trip was all about intuition. Following that, trusting this pretty much stranger, talking to my parents about it, them being like, we trust your intuition, you know, all of that kind of stuff, those tests that we put ourselves through, traveling alone, you know, Guatemala, all those trips that I did were all about my intuition, from saying yes to the experience and travel itself, to the people I went with, all of that. The mistakes I made were not following my intuition. Like, it's really interesting. So I honed in on intuition from a very early age. I think I'm a very intuitive person. I think I realized that power from the beginning, but not with food for a long time. I really wanted to follow the rules with food by the time I turned to an age 18, 19, when I moved to LA, I really wanted someone to tell me how to eat and to put myself in a box. And that's when I became vegan and became raw and all.
You and your roommates would have those like alternating diets where you binge at night.
So that came before the raw veganism stuff. When I lived with my college roommates and we would binge eat at night after starving ourselves all day, that was in college. I was like 18 through 20.
College?
Yeah.
I hope till 22.
Okay, so 18 to 22.
Yeah.
And then
Sophie finished college in a year and a half.
Yeah. No, I don't even know. So 18 to 22 was college, and that was kind of like just dysfunctional eating and trying to figure out what it was like to feed myself and go to farmers markets and go grocery shopping and food prep, all that stuff, when I had no experience with any of that. And then that was really dysfunctional. And then when I worked at the juice bar, that's when I started to get into raw veganism and plant-based eating. And that kind of started an even more extreme way of eating and trying to follow rules instead of my intuition. I kind of closed off my intuition at that time to follow this way of being in this dogmatic style of eating. And I think that it taught me so much just by
being in that space.
Yeah.
Interesting.
About what I don't want. I don't want rules. I don't want restrictions. I want to be able to listen to my body and listen to my intuition in terms of eating. And I want to feel free. I don't want to feel restricted ever again.
Yeah, I feel like this is something that we're both so similar on in the way we work with people in completely different fields.
Yeah.
Right? Nutrition. I mean, they're all in wellness, but like nutrition versus addiction and mental health. But it's the same.
It's the same.
So many people want to, well, you have to do this and you have to do that every day and then you have to do this. And then what I end up finding is people who are so scared of deviating that when they do, they fly off the fucking handle like there's no tomorrow because, oh my God, I wasn't perfect.
Exactly.
And, I see that all the time. So, okay. So in terms of food, maybe not a lot of intuition, but you were feeling like...
And I developed it over time. So then like by the time I had Kai, I had developed a lot of intuitive eating. I learned more about my intuition more than ever during my first pregnancy. And then from my first pregnancy, it kind of spiraled into food. And
Yeah, I mean, when you got pregnant with Kai, your whole appetite changed, the whole way you wanted to eat changed, and you kind of went with it.
Yeah, I listened to my intuition. Okay, I haven't eaten meat in 7 years. My body is craving it. I am dreaming of eating meat right now, literally.
Hunting,
bow and arrow style. And I listened to my intuition. I listened to my body. I listened to those cues.
We did not, by the way, go bow and arrow hunting, everybody. But Sophie ate meat for the first time in years.
Yeah. So that was the beginning of following my path and my truth and that gut intuition. And that's the thing about intuition. It becomes sharper the minute you follow it.
Yeah, well, we were talking with Robyn, who's our guest this week, and she talked about how she developed her intuition because growing up, she didn't have that. Like, her mom, like I'm sure many people listening right now, family members who follow the sort of traditional thing, like, oh, you're trying to lose weight, you don't want to be, I'm going to be non-PC about this, but like, if you're trying to not be fat, eat these, or you better not eat the cookies that your brother's eating, or whatever the thing is. And then you learn that starvation and or deprivation, at least, is the way to get what you want. And she was saying, I think I like this example that she used, where she was saying her body developed, so she no longer looked like a thin, she was like a boy body.
Stick, yeah.
Yeah. But she didn't like it.
She developed curves, and then she felt weird because it felt different.
Yeah, and she wasn't getting positive reinforcement for that change, and the education thing wasn't there. She felt like she was shamed or kind of be made to feel like she needed to deprive herself in order to get what she wanted, instead of actually embracing and accepting who she was becoming. And it was really in the middle. We talk about something that I think is really interesting, that, I mean, so many people weigh themselves. We haven't had a scale in this house for, I think, 5 or 6 years. When I go to the gym, I weigh myself. And no doubt, when I weigh myself, I start going like, well, I gained this many pounds or that many pounds. And I start...
Yeah, you start spiraling.
Yeah, well, you start kind of like trying to adjust based on that measure.
Number.
Like the number.
Yeah.
And then we talk a lot, we've talked about this here before, but the fact that, in the end, what are we trying to go after? We're trying to go after feeling fit, feeling healthy, liking the way we look, liking the way we feel in our bodies.
In our clothing, in our naked bodies, like all of it. We want to feel good and confident and strong and fit and healthy. Those are the things that really we want to focus on, but it comes from within.
But it's so messed up, right? Like we were just in Israel.
Yeah.
And I think you remember this. One day I got really down about being relatively out of shape and like not, I'd gained some weight. So definitely I haven't weighed myself in, I don't even know, a few months, but I remember last time that I'd gained some weight. I don't even know what I weigh right now, but you remember me feeling that, right? Like we had a conversation about it, and I was actually running and I did a little surfing in Israel. So I was active, but not like I used to be. I mean, you remember.
You always compare yourself to what you used to be.
Right.
It's a really interesting thing where you like keep going back to this place.
Well, I used to work out like an hour a day pretty much.
When you were in college?
Grad school.
Okay.
In college, I actually probably worked out more.
And grad school was how many years ago?
What are you trying to say?
9 years ago?
My wife is calling me old.
10 years ago? I just think it's interesting that you compare.
It was at least 10 years ago.
I just think it's interesting that you compare yourself to this earlier self. Like,
I think a lot of people do that. Like I'm 42 years old.
I don't know if that's healthy though.
I don't know if it's healthy either, but I'm saying I don't want to come on an ongoing basis kind of feel less and less satisfied with my level of fitness and all that. And
sure.
so I
just think
I try to
comparing,
like tether myself to something that'll be my standard so I can try to hold that.
Yeah. I just think creating new goals for who you are right now in this moment would be healthier than comparing yourself to who you were when you had no children, you were in college, had very little to do, and like that was your life.
Yeah, it's fun. So at the time I didn't feel like I had very little to do, but obviously I didn't know any better.
Yeah.
But I always joke with my college students and friends in grad school, like you have no idea what busy looks like yet. Just wait.
Yeah.
Give yourself 10 more years and then talk to me about busy when you have kids and are married and have a job and want a hobby and want to work out.
Exactly.
So you're right. But I actually wonder how you feel about this in the context of what we're talking about here. I'm afraid that if you keep allowing the standard to change, that's how next thing you know, you're like 65 years old and completely out of shape.
Yeah, I don't agree. I was talking about this today with Taylor, and like, I mean, I've worked out very little since having the baby. This is one of the most ultimate tests. Very little. And I'm eating whatever I want. I have no restrictions. I'm eating dairy. I'm eating gluten. I eat smart. It's not like I'm eating crap all day and eating cookie dough for breakfast sometimes. But
thank you very much for that, by the way.
Edible. We're mad at you, Rana.
Rana.
You're in trouble, Rana.
Thanks for bringing that to our house.
Check out Edible. It's the best cookie dough that you're only supposed to eat. You're not supposed to bake. It is such a guilty pleasure. It's amazing.
Totally.
Anyway, back to what I was talking about today. It's interesting how for the first time in my life, I'm not at all putting any restrictions around anything, and it feels really good, and I'm still losing weight, and I'm breastfeeding. Yes, absolutely. But that's it.
Well, you're breastfeeding and you also had a baby, so you're losing a ton of weight because your body gained so much weight to feed two people.
Sure. All I'm saying is that I'm not stressing out, and I think that I've lost a lot of weight in a 9-week period, and I feel really good in my skin right now. I'm not at all where I was pre-pregnancy, but I feel good in my skin. I'm going to continue on this path and not like be restrictive with food or be extreme with working out, because this gentle way of being is working. And I think that...
What's extreme with working out? What does that mean?
I think an hour a day for our lifestyle is a lot.
Sure.
Yeah, that's all I think that that's a lot. So but all I'm saying is for you personally, knowing you and knowing your lifestyle, comparing yourself to when you used to work out an hour a day doesn't make sense for who you are today, right?
Yeah.
Unless you really want to take the time and commit yourself to that. And
I mean, I obviously don't really want to take the time where I would.
You don't. So that's
like
not
I do what I want to really do. So if I really, really wanted to do it, then I would carve out other time. I would take time out of work.
You go to Shape House for an hour twice a week. That's huge.
Yeah. And
that's
then I
wonderful.
work out probably another 2 times a week, 2 to 3 times a week.
Yeah. And sometimes you jog to Shape House. Like you do a lot of great things for yourself. You do spin bike, you do running.
Well, like you mentioned, like now I have to fit exercise into my days because my days are packed.
Right. So all I'm saying is if you want to compare yourself to this old person, you need to step up to the challenge and start putting an hour of working out every morning into your workout. You need to get up at 6.
In
your day, I mean. So an hour from 6 to 7 every single day of working out, or whatever times you can sneak it in there in your schedule. If not, then you need to stop comparing yourself to that person.
Totally. So that is what I'm saying. What I'm saying is not that... I'm saying I care about it. Mm-hmm. And so I need to do the best in my mind. I need to do the best that I can to get as close as I want to, as close as I really care to that standard. Because I absolutely recognize the limitations in my life. And I think this speaks to a lot of the people, whether it's exercise, diet, work, whatever it is going on in your life. Like we tell ourselves that we want these things.
Absolutely.
And then reality hits.
Exactly.
And well, you can't do everything.
Right.
So you can't have a family and a full-time job and still live exactly like you had and play like 3 hours of video games a day and watch 2 movies a day and have the life that you had 15 years ago when you didn't have those responsibilities.
Exactly.
Because it doesn't all fit into a day.
It doesn't all fit. Exactly.
So that's exactly what I'm saying is I need to kind of recalibrate in my head what effort I'm willing to put into the exercise. Sure. And where I am right now, I don't think I can get to an hour a day, but probably on average I'm trying to get to a half an hour to 3/4 of an hour a day. Like, and it won't be every day because I can't fit it in every day, but like 75 to 80% of what I used to work out is kind of where I want to be. And it's not about this. The reason I even started on this is it's not about the weight because I literally don't know what I weigh right now. Right. But it is about the feeling in the body. And what I was saying is in Israel, I had these days where it didn't feel right. And then since we came back home, I had a few days where I actually felt better. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because all I was jet lagged for a few days and sleeping more. I wasn't exercising more since we got home. So what I'm saying is around the concept of intuition, I love this little tangent that we just went on. But what I'm saying around intuition is I think it's important to also not put too much stake in how you feel at any given instant, but rather to kind of be able to step back a little bit and take an overall view. Because what that showed me was, okay, well, for a couple of days, I felt pretty shitty about my fitness. And then for a couple of days, I felt pretty good about it, or at least better than okay. So yeah, maybe I'm not feeling as great about it as I used to, but I'm pretty damn good in the grand scheme of things, because it's not like every day is bad. And what I'm saying is, for me, intuition, I know that I can get pretty swept up in momentary feelings about how I'm doing. I feel like, I don't know if I'm right about this or not, but I feel like you're better at that. Like being a little bit more even keeled around. I get very up and very down.
You do. Yeah.
It's funny. There was an advisor of mine at school once, I don't know. I have no idea why he felt like saying this to me was okay. Him being my advisor and me just coming into work one day, was go, I think you're a type 2 bipolar. I'm like, fuck, thanks, man. Like,
wow.
Just randomly diagnosing me on my way to work to my desk.
That's so funny.
And he was just pissed because I hadn't done something and I was maybe feeling lower and had lower energy that day. But
you experience the lows and highs more
whether
than...
I cross into bipolar 2 or not is besides the point a little bit for me, because you know how much I love labels. But I absolutely cycle up and down. Like I go through times where I wake up. The thing is, I just kind of feel like I've learned to manage it, and I'm having the same experience with how I feel about myself.
Yeah, it's slightly more managed now than it was when I first met you. Like, yeah.
Well, I'm more aware.
You're more aware. That's what I meant to say.
Because I'm more aware of it. When I'm in the down, I go, oh, I'm having one of my down cycles. It's not going to last forever.
And I'm aware of your down cycles now too. Like I know when you're in that place, and it's like, okay, he's in that place.
I need to tune out a little bit. Whereas when I'm in my up cycle, I'm all excited about life. I'm and then I have a lot of ideas, and then you look at me like, fucking hey, we can't do all these things. Just chill the F out, man.
Yeah.
Bro. Yeah. You never call me bro once.
No, I don't call you bro.
So, this intuition thing, I think I really like the conversation you and Robyn have about this in this episode, because it's your two versions of it, and those are different, and my version of intuition is different.
Yeah, and that's the point. Like I wanted to just close up what we were just, our kind of conversation just now, our tangent. The point of that is that when it comes to how you feel about yourself, it's personal. It's one of a kind. It's unique. It's yours. It's 100% yours. And you are the only one that you go to sleep with at the end of the night. You are the one that you wake up to in the morning. You want to make sure you're happy, you're whole, you're feeling confident in whatever ways that you need to get there. And yes, Adi?
I'm raising my, okay. That's my relationship tip for
awesome.
Today.
Share it.
So my relationship tip for today is pay attention to these skills, pay attention to the tools, listen to how other people are doing it, and then practice honing your own intuitive radar.
Exactly.
In relationship, like in our relationship, part of my job, and I feel like I'm finally getting better at this after 13 years of being together with you, is being intuitive about other people. And I think in relationship, a lot of us want that. Like, I want to read their mind. I want to know what they're going through so I can deliver exactly what they need. But first, you got to work on your own intuition.
Right.
Because I think so many of us are blinded to our own internal compass. Mm-hmm. And then we wonder why we have these ups and these downs, and we feel out of sorts. And so kind of what I wrote here is what I love, and I'd love for you to share some of your tools, was in working on your own intuition is to share with others close to you, to consult, to discuss, and be open with the people around you. Because what I found through you is sometimes you see things in me that I don't even recognize, mm-hmm. because they're patterns, and you're around me, and you know me, and you love me, and and we're intimate. And so I like the sharing so that I can share kind of what I see in the cycles that I go through. I can talk to you, and then you give me back the pattern. Like we just discovered this Sunday thing about me.
Yeah.
We've been together for I don't know how long. We just discovered that kind of, I don't know if it's been going on for years, but at least in the last few months, on Sundays, I get irritable, and I get irritable because it's like right before Monday, and I'm excited for the work that I get to do, but it's been almost too long that I've been disconnected, and I get caught in this weird middle ground.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would have seen that if you weren't there next to me and we were talking on Sundays about how I feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. Like we're at the beach and I'm weirded out. So for me, one of the best tools for honing this radar is actually not trying to do it all yourself, but rather get close to people around you and talk openly about what's going on and pay attention to the patterns so you can start saying, oh, I'm experiencing the same thing that other people are seeing in me. Maybe that's the right kind of compass for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's great.
what are some of the tools that you've used to get clearer about your own internal intuition?
I think really it's about connecting to your inner voice. So some of us just need to get clear on communicating with that person. So I think journaling is incredible. I think journaling is a tool that has helped me get through some of my toughest moments and helped me to hear that voice and follow my true path.
You bought me a 5-minute journal for my birthday this year, and I started using it pretty religiously. Like for me, almost every morning I use it.
Yeah.
People were asking about that on Instagram because I shared one of the pages. Get something like that.
Yeah, just start simple. You don't have to have like a pre-made journal like that. Just get a journal where you say 5 minutes a day. I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes and I'm going to write what I'm grateful for. Period. That's it.
Yeah.
It could be morning. It can be night. It can be sitting by your bedside table. It can be sitting by the coffee maker, whatever it is that'll make you do it every single day for 5 minutes or whatever you decide is best for you. Maybe it's an hour on the weekend and you go outside into nature. But I think for me personally, writing, journaling, free writing without any rules or restrictions, just writing really helps me to hear and see what it is that I am working on.
Cool.
Yeah, I think my list could go on and on and on, but I think journaling is one of the greatest tools.
I think we might record some more podcast episodes. So maybe you'll get to share some of those in the future.
Yes, I think so too.
Okay, everybody. So get ready, tune in, turn off. No, that's a different saying. That's from a while ago. Just kind of pay attention to Sophie's wonderful voice as she tells you about Philosophy, a company you may have heard of before. And we're coming at you on the other side with Robyn.
Yay.
See you on the other side.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
This episode of the Ignited podcast is brought to you by Philosophy Superfoods. The Philosophy offers cleanses and other nutritional products that are unlike any of the other supplements and detoxification programs on the market. Why? Because they actually nourish the body with whole, live, nutrient-rich foods instead of depriving you and leaving you hungry. Have you ever tried a cleanse only to find out that you can't make it through a whole day because you're starving? Ever try a superfood shake that made you nauseous because it was so disgusting you'd rather not eat? The Philosophy fix all that with a simple set of offerings that load up your body with nutrients while actually tasting good. Makes sense, right? Each of the Philosophy superfood and protein blends is vegan, raw, gluten-free, and has absolutely no filler ingredients. With over 15,000 satisfied customers, including some of the world's biggest celebrities like George Clooney, Gerard Butler, Lea Michele, and over 10 years of experience, this is the best stuff you can get. To buy some or find out more info, go to our website, thephilosophy.com.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Ignited podcast. This is the conversation part of what we do here. And I'm excited for today's guest. We have Robyn Youkilis in the house.
What?
Visiting from
Hey.
the city. I still call New York the city.
I do too.
Even
It's
when
fine.
you're in LA.
Yeah, that's fine.
But you live here too.
I live here too. So I'm based out of New York City. I'm in Brooklyn now, actually. And we live in Los Angeles, my husband, myself, and my 2.5-year-old daughter, Navy. We live in LA about 3 months out of the year, broken up. And
Nice.
kind of scattered. Yeah. One's Coachella, so we plan a trip around then.
Nice.
Priorities. One's summer, and then usually like a late fall or winter one.
Perfect.
Very,
Yeah,
very
so
nice. And I mean, you came in here, and I know I heard about you through the kind of wellness community, and we were talking about that a little bit, but I feel like there's so many similarities. You come from or not come from originally, but like you live in a 2-entrepreneur household, just like we have here. You got your little girl.
You're a mama.
2.5 years old. So I'm sure we'll end up talking about that a little bit. And then you came out with a book. When did the book actually come out?
So this is my second book. My first book, Go With Your Gut, was out about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
Which when I got pregnant, the only thing I said to like God, the universe, I was like, I just don't want the book and the baby to come out at the same time. I had my book and then my baby came out 2 weeks later. So that was wild, but it actually ended up being a huge lesson because it made me get really focused and really clear. Like I only had time for what had to be done.
Yeah.
And anything else that wasn't top list, like I really did learn like for real about priorities and how to do that. And then my recent book, Thin From Within, came out this past February.
Wow, that's so cool.
I've been touring and doing speaking engagements. And I always tell fellow authors, you know, they get so stressed about the first month or two after the book comes out. And yes, it's busy then, but there's a season. It's a whole, like I say, 6 months to a year, you're promoting and talking about
For
your
sure.
recent book, especially with podcasts and, you know, traveling.
Very, very cool.
Well, I love this. I mean, I haven't read it yet, but what I've looked at about the book and what I've heard about it is that it's about intuitive eating, which is my jam. I'm actually writing a cookbook about intuitive eating. So same club.
Amazing.
You know, I want to hear your story, of course, but for me, it was like such an aha moment when I realized there are no rules and it's about listening to your own gut and your own, you know, heart gut and brain gut and all of that, and just really being intuitive about what to eat for your body. And that's ever changing and ever evolving. And yeah, so I'm excited to chat about this.
Yeah, it's I mean, you know, it's kind of funny to following your intuition to become a bigger and bigger thing in almost every aspect. You have Gabby Bernstein on the front, kind of is providing a quote and things like that. But we talked a little before we were doing this about the fact that one of the things you really wanted to tie in was, and I think Sophie had mentioned to Robyn that this was a conversation we just had in Israel as well, was removing the scale, removing the weight as the definition of whether you are quote unquote skinny. And to me, that comes with a lot more than just trusting your gut, irony and all, you know, and then puns and all that in here. But also just the notion that when you say you want to be skinny, when you say you want to have money, when you say you want to have love, you're looking for something. You're looking to feel a certain way. And that if you start connecting to what that is, what you're actually looking to experience, you may find out that the result has nothing to do with 103 being on the scale, but instead with the way you carry yourself, or how easy of a time you have walking up the stairs or playing with your kids or whatever that is. And Sophie, just literally, what would you say, a week and a half ago when you were walking in Israel, you'd mentioned again, I mean, I know we don't have a scale at home, but you mentioned again that it was right after Leo came out and you hit your goal weight that you actually made a conscious decision to get rid of the scale.
Oh yeah, I threw it out because it makes me crazy. I had actually a sponsored person like reach out, like a company wanted to collaborate, and I did a prior collaboration for like a beauty product for them, and they were like, "Oh, it did so well. We'd love to work on this next one." And it's a product that essentially is a scale. And I was like, I didn't write back for 2 weeks, and then I wrote back, and I'm like, you know, it's just not good for me. Like it's not good for, I promote not weighing yourself. I promote how do you feel? How do you want to feel from what you eat to how the clothes feel to how you look when you look in the mirror. And it's so much deeper than that. And I think for me personally, there aren't many things that make me crazy, but a number, it made me crazy in both directions because I'd weigh myself, and I'm sure this is very common, but for me, my personal experience was I'd weigh myself, and if I was doing quote unquote well, then it made me crazy because I like either wanted to stay there and obsessively thinking about like, oh, I don't want to like make the scale jump, or it was above and then it would depress me the rest of the day into the next days. And it just isn't healthy. And with Leo, I had him and I quickly bounced back and quickly got to the goal weight like within 3 months. And it's because I was obsessively like recording my food in one of those like apps, Live Strong app. I remember like every day, like a bite in my mouth, like, and I'm so far from that now because he's 6, and I like immediately literally went outside to our backyard and dumped it in the trash. And I was I'm never getting it. I remember like the way that it felt that day, and I was just done. It was such like a physical, like it was metaphorical, but it was just like, I'm done. I'm dumping you. Like we are no longer in a relationship.
So what brought you to this kind of different definition of thin?
Yeah. So I had very fortunately had a very healthy, loving home growing up. My mom cooked homemade food almost every day. We had coq au vin. She made chocolate soufflés. And so I always had a love affair of being in the kitchen and helping her cook. But what happened was I remember at 13 years old, my tushy popped out, my hips popped out, and all of a sudden I just didn't have this super slender, boyish frame anymore that I saw in all the magazines. And I was like, oh, I don't look like that anymore. Something must be wrong. Like, this is bad. And I, again, starting a very early relationship with good and bad. And I remember picking up from the girls at school talking about dieting, and how little could they eat and what did they have that day. And I was like, oh, well, that must be the way.
Wow, at 13?
13.
I was so not aware of that stuff until I moved to LA.
Yeah, no, I was so aware of it. I grew up on Long Island, and I remember it was the bat mitzvah circuit, because it was like boys starting to look at girls in a different way and girls starting to look at boys in a different way, and just being very conscious of my body and like what boys thought was hot and what I just didn't think I was. And at the same time, I didn't really have a supportive place to talk about this. My mom didn't know how to talk to me about this. No one gives any kind of training. And, she just knew, well, you don't want to be, a bigger girl. That's your goal. So maybe you don't want to eat that right now. Maybe you want to pass on that cookie. And just this like a little bit of programming around what was okay and what wasn't okay.
So you did talk to your mom about the fact that you didn't want to look or keep gaining weight.
I remember gaining weight, and she was like, well, maybe that means you shouldn't have some of those foods. And if your brother's having that, like a Stouffer's mac and cheese as a snack, like maybe you want to have some carrot sticks. This is her doing her best, right? She had no idea. Again, none of us are really routinely conditioned with any of this new ways that we talk about things now, which I'm so grateful to be having this conversation now, which is why I will go to every podcast and tell everybody who will listen, this is how you can have this conversation with your children. This is how you can have it with yourself, even to begin with. And then at the same time, I always saw my mother's always been naturally very slender. Food has never been an obsessive compulsive, category for her. On the other hand, my father always struggled with his weight. And my father was definitely this bigger than life personality, ate life whole, and quite literally ate life whole. And I remember he was always on a diet, and my mom was always trying to like keep and hide food from him. And I remember the cookies being in like the back of the cabinet where he couldn't see them. And I just remember him struggling with that, and also kind of making me a cohort in his like eating crimes, I would say. I remember we would visit in Central Park in the city, and he'd be like, oh, Robyn, you want a pretzel with mustard? I'd be like, okay. Robyn, you want a strawberry milkshake from McDonald's? Okay. And again, none of this was bad. It was him doing his best, but it's programming in some way that I was like, okay, if you want to indulge, you have to hide this, or you have to cover this up.
Totally.
And at the same time, I was gaining, a small amount of weight. I would never consider myself or classify myself as morbidly obese or, a large number on the scale. I'm going to be very conscientious of how I describe that, but I don't quite have the language yet, for the best way to talk about that. Take it as you will. But it was more about this internal struggle and this internal battle of, you're not thin enough. You don't look like the other girls. You're not skinny enough. That means you're not good enough. That means you have no control over yourself and your food as much as I tried to control it. And and even later in life, when I remember, I look back, I had this moment a few years ago when I looked back at this photo, and I remember at the time I was on a yoga retreat and training for a half marathon. So I was doing 2 yoga classes a day and running like 6 to 10 miles in the jungle in Nicaragua. And the retreat center didn't really have their act together. So we were fed I was like, not that much food. I was like, I just need an avocado. Can someone give me more calories? And I remember my husband took a photo of me in this bathing suit, and I remember looking at myself and being like, "You're still not thin enough." I remember this. This was only a few years ago.
Yeah, I have those moments.
And then I look back now, and I realize in writing my process in writing this book, I was like, "Wow, if I wasn't there then, there is no there."
Totally.
And I really got it. And of course, the process of having my daughter and getting pregnant, watching my body change, that was really kind of hit it home for me. But I remember that aha moment of okay, if you didn't think you were there here, there does not exist. And so how can we dismantle these thoughts that are not supportive? How can we write a new script for ourselves? How can we talk to ourselves? How can we break down, this idea of intuitive eating sounds great, but what the heck does that really mean? And how is it going to play out in my life when I'm exhausted? Everyone needs something from me, and I have 2 minutes to figure this all out.
Yeah. I found that having third child down. You're
amazing, by the way. I have to say it. I know everybody says it to you, but I have to say it. You're amazing.
Thank
my
you
husband
so
is, I will say, my husband is one of 3, and it's magical. And we'll see one day. I would love for that, but I see that there is a real something in having 3. So I honor both of you in that. I know it is not easy.
Thank you so much.
So I have to say,
thank you.
Go on.
No, I just felt, I felt that having babies, being pregnant, that whole process was so healing. I felt like with each child, different kind of ways, relationships that I had with myself, like the way I viewed myself, or relationships with like food or the scale or body image or dysmorphia or any of that stuff just went away and peeled away because it's just such an amazing, magical experience. And of course, like I've been very public about my pregnancies not being very easy, but the process of a woman having a baby is such a miracle that everything else is trumped. You know, it's like all my issues just kind of fizzled away with each pregnancy. You know, it's layers of unlearning.
A lifetime
of
of
unprogramming,
thinking about food in a certain way.
unlearning. Yeah, food and your body and being perfect and being thin and not enough and all of that. And I feel like it is such a healing experience to have pregnancy, that whole process of birthing a human, you know, creating a human and then birthing one. It's like a new version of yourself is birthed.
Totally.
It's really cool.
I remember looking at myself when I was pregnant, and I need to say and be totally honest, I've always wanted children and I wanted to have them, God willing. I did not want to be pregnant when I was pregnant. So I really struggled. I got pregnant really fast, which of course I know, you know, Hashem, thank you God. Like that's a blessing every time. But I remember it bringing up a lot of my disordered eating behavior, like people looking at my stomach, and I knew logically that's a baby, but emotionally I was like, they think I'm fat or I'm not controlling enough, right? Like all these things this is why I teach this work, because I am working myself constantly and always with it. And I think the real breakthrough in having my daughter with that was when she was here, and I was like, you know what, Robyn? Everyone says pre-body weight, goal weight, get back to this. How many months did it take you? I literally was like, I'm a little rebel in me. If everyone's like, we're doing this thing, I'm like, well, how can I do something different? And I just said to myself, I'm like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to trust my body. I'm going to trust my life. I'm going to trust this new story that I'm rewriting, that I put all in Thin from Within. And I'm going to give my body a break and I'm going to relax about it. Now, mind you, after a few months of that, I was like, okay, maybe it's time to stop eating all the gluten-free vegan cookies. Like I had a moment where it started to be uncomfortable, you know? And so I was just more conscious of what made me feel good.
Right. It was a moment that came internally instead of constant external stimuli about what you need to do. Because the scale will give you a number. It doesn't, I mean, I guess you could do like body composition imaging and all that sort of stuff. But like the problem with using external data constantly to measure how you feel inside is it's not nuanced. You could feel, I mean, we talked about this in a previous episode. I will have one day where I wake up and I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh, looking pretty good. Like not feeling old, not feeling like I'm weak, not feeling tired, all that kind of stuff. And then the next day, I will wake up and I look in the mirror and all of a sudden I'm overweight and I look like I'm 50 and I'm 42. Incredible? And I go, I mean, at least thank God I have the wherewithal at this point to say, okay, nothing changed in the meantime. I mean, you might have slept a few hours less than you wanted to last night because it was a bad night, but nothing changed. If I looked at a scale, which I don't typically, but if I looked at a scale, it would be like a half a pound to a pound difference. That cannot be the reason why I feel different. And like you just said, once you make that realization in your head, at least then you recognize what the real battle you're fighting is. Because you're not fighting a battle with the scale. It doesn't matter what the scale says. If you feel like shit, you're going to feel like shit. So how do you work on feeling good rather than on making the scale say whatever you want it to? And by the way, for anybody listening, it works like this. I think we should at some point today talk about like having two entrepreneurs at home and all that stuff. Because when you're an entrepreneur, it works that way with money. Like you set a money goal. If I made $500,000 in my business, then everything would be okay. But when you're making $5,000 a month in the business, you have no idea what problems are going to come up when you're making $500,000. And so when you get to that place, all of a sudden you go, oh crap, now I have a whole new set of things to worry about that I didn't realize were there before. It can't be, the goals are nice to hit and they're nice to monitor and all that stuff, but those can't be the place where you get your fulfillment from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say, you know, in my work, like what's been weighing you down?
Yeah.
You know, it's not going to be a pound or a physical body mass. Like what happened with you in those 24 hours that made you feel heavier? And a lot of the times it is taking a real honest look at your life and being like, what's weighing me down?
Energetically.
Like, and when you ask yourself that question, what is your intuition telling you? Because it's often something that might be the hardest, most challenging thing for you to change, but you must start to take the steps towards it. That's when I like don't put the pressure. I'm not saying like quit the job tomorrow. It's like, okay, if that's what I need to do, what steps can I take to very calmly and slowly get myself there?
And that will make you feel lighter right away. Just making the steps. I mean, we want to buy a house, and I mean, in LA, it's crazy town.
Well, you need a mortgage broker. That's what my husband does.
Yeah, we will. We'll need him. But I feel like anything is attainable, and we work for ourselves, and anything that we've wanted to manifest in our lives, whether it be financial or a physical manifestation of a human being,
Who are you talking about?
Some little smush upstairs. Like we wanted to have a girl, we manifested that. Like anything that I've ever wanted in my life, I have created with energetic, intention. And so we were just in Israel, and we set an intention, like, what do we have to do to get a house in a year and a half? Like, what do we need to do? What is the number that I need to hit every month? And then I can kind of like work around that and that goal and be like, so that is an external goal.
Sure.
But just nothing changed. All that changed is that we took pen to paper. Mm-hmm. We had, a little like fun session together where we got to connect and set those goals and really be clear about what we both want. And just saying it into the universe, and then also putting it on paper and having an understanding, I felt lighter. Because to me, it's like I already have it. It's already there. It's already happening because I have that trust already that it will happen. So energetically, we walked away from that breakfast, and I felt so much lighter because it's a conversation that we've needed to have for a while so we can start to work towards the next thing. But really, it's about connecting.
Yeah.
Really, it's about being on the same page and being excited about something.
To, like you mentioned, what's weighing you down. If you are not aware, I literally just did a Facebook Live on this like an hour ago. Actually, as you were walking in. If you hate Mondays, and every Monday you feel like shit, and you just haven't paid attention to it in 15 years, but you hate your job and the career that you've been on, which is kind of what you were alluding to a little bit, you can weigh exactly your goal weight and wear the clothes you've been wanting to wear for 15 years, and everything else can be great. And every Monday you're going to feel like shit, and you're going to wake up and it's going to show up repeatedly for you. You're right. You don't have to quit that job in the moment, but the first thing you have to do is recognize. And I actually tell people, you might not even have to quit the job, but you better get something else in your life that will offset that. If you feel like your job is robbing people of their free will, go volunteer in a soup kitchen, or find a way to offset the things you don't like in your life. It is much better if you can just get rid of the negative pull. But some people are stuck, or they feel stuck. I've felt stuck before for long periods of time. Start acting on these big elephants that have just, those things that are just sitting all around your life, and you've just been ignoring them because they feel like they're too big to handle. This is your life.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
If you don't handle them now, you'll be really sorry in 10 years. And then in 20 years, you'll be miserable about it, and will be kind of drinking yourself to death every evening because you just can't deal with your reality. So, you got to start looking. Yeah, you got to start looking all around. And once you build that awareness, at least you know what you're really dealing with. Because if you've been dieting on and off and it's not working, it's not about the next diet. There is no next diet that will unravel all of this for you.
Well, and I think also, like, when it comes back to intuitive anything, finding your intuition, you have to start with being aware. And if you're not aware of yourself, if you're not aware of your actions, if you're not aware of like the way you feel and the things you do and the way that all connects, you can't be intuitive. There is no intuition without being aware of who you are and the actions you take.
What are some of the tools you give people that you found? I mean, like, we use meditation and mindfulness, obviously, but like some tools have worked really, really well with people who come to you for weight loss, and you've been able to help them reevaluate what it is they're really looking at.
So definitely have some practical items that I talk about in the book, like nourishing your gut and building up your microbiome and getting some good gut bacteria in there, working with your body's symbiotic system, but also some of the emotional components. So one, for example, I talk about the go with your gut weight loss formula, and the word your is taking a moment for you between the end of your like work day, air quotes, and that can be, you can be stay at home working mom that way too, and your evening. Because a lot of us come home, we feel overwhelmed by our day, we're exhausted by that point, and we still have a whole night ahead of us. So I always say, you know, wherever you had that day, if you're commuting, you get in your car and you come home, don't go in the house yet.
I love this. I love this, by the way.
Spend 60 seconds, maybe it's 5 minutes, because if you'd been in traffic, you would have taken up those 5 minutes anyways. So take 5 minutes and just be like, oh, hi, take a few breaths, like you did it. Your day is done. You have an evening ahead of you. What's an intention for the evening? Maybe you want to feel calm. Maybe you want to, you know, ask your intuition. Maybe you need a bath. Maybe you need to call some friends and catch
the
up.
Transition.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love
because
that.
what we typically do is we plow right into the cabinets when we get home, because we're trying to ground ourselves with food.
Yes.
We're reaching for either
That's
sugar
me.
for energy
Yes.
or something to just pull us down. I remember I had a big habit that I had to break every time I take a nap. I mean, I don't nap anymore in momland. That's funny. But when I used to, as
Do you want
soon
to
as
stop and reminisce for a second?
yeah,
We can all take a nap right now.
so nice. I would reach for food a second I woke up from the nap, because it would like bring me back to whether I was hungry or not. And a lot of us are unconsciously or consciously doing that. And also, even if you're not doing it as soon as you get home, maybe you have your dinner, but then you're snacking all night. So that's a very kind of like emotional, but also practical. That's the way that I work with my clients and how I
Love
teach
it.
in my book, all my books, is to just find these little pockets where it doesn't have to be this crazy to do or new fad you're following, but you're just taking a moment to connect to yourself.
That's great.
I love that. I love that. It's huge, and it stops you in your tracks and allows you to be aware again. And then you can just decide. I mean, sometimes I want to come home and eat and raid the cabinets, but if I'm clear on that, and I'm
exactly.
like, oh, I'm actually ravenous. I haven't eaten a lot today. That's what I'm checking in on. Like, I haven't eaten a lot. Okay, I need to go serve that side to myself and treat myself to a bowl of ice cream if that's what I want, but with intention instead of mindlessly.
Right. And then hating yourself for it after.
Yeah.
And having what you just said is so beautiful. Like, maybe you really need the nutrition
Yeah.
so you can make a more like, I don't want to, there's no good and bad foods, but what would really serve
me.
you?
Yeah.
Maybe you need to eat half an avocado first, or you really need
Exactly.
to make yourself some eggs, like taking a moment instead of sort of, well, I'll just have a little this and then I'll just have a little that. And
Right.
that's what makes us feel like crap.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. And
I mean,
because we're disconnected. We're disconnected from the source. Like, what do we actually need in this moment? So instead, like if you're sitting in the car, like you said, and you take that 60 seconds to just check in, and you're like, I'm hungry. Okay, I would like something sweet. Okay, and then you take yourself down that trail. Maybe you make a better choice because you would then make a banana ice cream, which maybe takes an extra 2 minutes than opening a pint of ice cream, but you'll feel so much more energized and better and vibrant from it by just taking that extra 2 minutes. When you wouldn't have done that, you would have gone straight to the freezer if you didn't have the time to decompress.
And this doesn't sound like a big deal. People are like, oh, great, I made a banana and ice cream over a regular ice cream. But it's not about that.
It adds up.
It's about hearing an intuitive hit about something and then listening to it. And the more we can be doing that in our life, the more gifts of that nature we're going to get when it comes to our relationships,
Everything.
partners, business decisions, everything. Ever since I've been working my intuitive muscle around food, around my life, everything, it's just... things feel a lot easier, which is funny for me because I'm a Libra through and through. And it's all over my chart. So typically that's a lot of indecision, and a lot of back and forth. And that is softened. It's still there, but it's definitely lost its grip on me in a sense that I feel more like I am in the driver's seat of my life.
It's funny. We were in Israel just last week, and there's a lot of Israeli foods that we get around here, but I don't know. It just tastes different when I'm there.
The water is different.
The water's different. It's all, everything. It's just different. So
Oil, yeah.
Have you been?
Yes, I've been to Israel. Yeah, I love it there.
So we went and I was eating shawarma, which is kind of like the staple food that I like eating there. And I bought a Coca-Cola. I haven't had a Coke in, I don't even know how long, but like years. Probably 3 years that I haven't had one. I've had Diet Cokes here and there. Again, the idea of like not having the calories. Although we had Frank Lipman on the show, Dr. Lipman on, and he's in New York too, right?
He's awesome.
He's amazing. And so that was one of those first places where I started recognizing like, oh, I might be screwing myself up more with the caloric free.
Yeah, it confuses your brain
and
your
the
cells
gut and messes
and the
up the
gut.
gut.
Yeah,
It really
so
destroys
much.
your
I have a whole
microbiome.
section on fake foods and what they actually do instead of just like, you shouldn't eat that. Well, why? Like really why?
Versus like having the sugar, which feeds the bacteria. Anyway, so first time I've had it in a while. And the funny thing is, in the context of kind of what we're talking about is, I think a lot of people are afraid that it's an all or nothing game, right? I had the Coke because I remember what having that food with a Coke tastes like, and I really wanted the experience. And I had it. I haven't had another. I'm not like running to Ralph's to just pick up Coca-Cola because all of a sudden I'm hooked. I was able to give myself the experience that I wanted because I've made all these other changes. Because of Sophie, I've made all these other changes in diet. Like, we have coconut sugar over there instead of like, just regular white sugar, and just little changes like that. And so I really want to support what you're saying for a lot of people who are listening and maybe haven't made shifts because it seems like it's too much. Just start with 1 or 2.
Yep.
Just little crap. Like instead of this kind of sugar, you get this other kind. Even if you go from white to brown, whatever, like just start making gradual little changes in your life. And what you'll find was if you change 1 or 2 little things every couple of months, you'll end up like me 5-10 years down the line with a completely different set of eating habits.
Yep, that's my husband too, for sure.
And they're not hard. I don't have a hard time dealing with anything right now.
Right.
Like, I mean, I pretty much eat what I want. It's just that what I want has changed because it's what I've gotten used to. Like I remember, those naked juices. So they have their green machine or whatever, or I think that's who make that. But like green machine used to be my version of a green smoothie.
Healthy. He was like,
I'm being healthy.
Yeah.
The thing that said green on it.
Yes. And that thing must have like 3 cups of sugar in it or something. It's ridiculous. I can't have those things anymore because they're so sweet. It's ridiculous. But I couldn't have like a plain green juice 6-7 years ago. So your habits, just like it happens with my addiction clients, just like it happens with the clients that Sophie and I work with couples, your habits will change. And you don't have to go from black to white. You don't have to go from I eat Taco Bell and McDonald's for breakfast to I'm a vegan who's eating all raw. That's not the shift you have to make, but you have to start caring. You have to start paying attention. Wait, you said, I love this. This is weighing me down. I feel it in the pit of my stomach. I feel it in my chest. This doesn't make me feel good. What little shift can I make so that I feel better? Not amazing, not perfect, better. And if you can start making those shifts, I wonder how you think about this and how you kind of guide people through this. If you go through the process, the decision to change might have been momentary, but if you go through the process of changing, it doesn't even have to be painful.
Yeah, it's all about like, what do you want and how can we get you there? And really readjusting that there is years. I tell my clients when they first come work with me, even in my group programs, like, okay, we'll definitely make some shifts right away, like adding in some probiotic rich foods, shifting around your breakfast, lunch, dinner, like some of your habits in your day that I talk about. And that will shake things up for a month or 2. But the rest of this work, it really is years. I talk a lot about chewing and chewing our food completely before swallowing because it's such a great mindful eating tool. It's free. You can do it anywhere. It relates to anything. But it just gets you in your body. And that's one thing that you can do to shift, but that took me it took me about 3 years, I say, to like really slow down and chew my food. And I still find myself like putting the fork down. I know that is actually one thing I will say. While my husband's diet has changed dramatically since we met 11 years ago, he still wolfs his food down really quickly.
Everyone's in shock because he's so petite and like he will just inhale. Like you can't, if you get something and share with him, like there's no sharing. Like it's the
I know I have to take my food on my butt. I'm like, well, I want that. And then he also likes, my husband does this one thing, drives me nuts. Like I'm very particular about my bites and the order in which I eat things.
Okay.
Like I like certain bites for last. And then he always sees that like perfect bite and grabbed it. I was like, I really wanted that.
Like go buy me 3 more entrees and I'm going to save them.
It is about mindfulness. It is about like my brain is so scattered that I just like I had the bite and then it's as if a half a second later, my brain forgot that it already had a bite and I go for another. And it's the same with everything. It's the same with drinks. It's the same with, I don't drink. It's kind of funny. I don't drink like fruity,
sweet,
really great tasting mixed drinks anymore because I will consume so fast that if I don't make something make me pay attention to what I'm consuming, it'll just go by too quickly and I don't savor the experience. And by the way, I think a lot of eating is about savoring the experience. Yeah. I can have the exact...
You want it to last as long as possible. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean...
getting to eat.
I love food and...
same.
I want to enjoy it and that is something I need to get better at is
I think
really
also
paying
cooking
attention.
your own food makes a big difference. Like I work from home and I'm very, like I'm such a food person. So like even making my smoothie in the morning, it's like such like a ceremonial, like it's an amazing meditative experience. I have music going and like maybe it's chanting or maybe it's like upbeat music, but it's really feel good. It's all about feeling good. And then I'm injecting that energy into the food as I'm going. I'm not like all scattered and like on the phone. I'm like very much like meditative as I make that or like make my salad. And I think for dinners, we should be better about making food together as a family because that's part of the experience. And when you put all that love into it, it makes you enjoy it and slow down that much more instead of it just being like a thing you take for granted.
So I would say in coaching around that, right, you have the intention of doing more dinners together. So I would say, okay, let's break that down a little. So how many times a week, right? It's not realistic to say 5 nights a week. So let's say maybe on
2.
every Tuesday, because Monday can feel a little off from the weekend.
Yeah.
Maybe every Tuesday or Wednesday, we do this as a family. And then also with making food and having kids around, a lot more time in advance. Because you can't be hungry or need to eat in 20 minutes when something, so that's like, okay, so realistic, if we're eating, at 5:30 or 6 p.m., I need to start this at this time. And 4, right. Yeah. And can I meal prep a little bit of that the day before?
Exactly.
Can I make sure the kale is chopped and washed and dried and ready to go?
You know what's been really helpful? We're going to get another one, but those food delivery where they send you the pre-portioned out
ingredients.
food.
I've never done those
It's
before.
really great. I'll send you my favorites.
Okay.
It's really great. I feel like it just makes it so much fun. It forces you because you've got all these perishable items in your fridge, but also it's all, already divided up. You still do
You
the
don't
chop.
have to think about it as much.
You still do the
brain
chopping.
work.
You still you're very connected. You're cooking it all, but the fact that it's all done for you and it's all there, you're not like, oh shoot, I don't have an onion. It's just done and thought out. That really helps us. And we had so much fun doing
And
it.
Kai loves, our older boy loves cooking.
And he
so
can
he really likes
read.
being part
So
of
it's
it.
like
that's
he's a part
awesome.
of it. He loves
That's awesome.
it.
Yeah, he really, really likes
And
it.
with my 2-year-old in the kitchen, again, it's expectation of time and messiness. So I just know, okay, she's helping.
It's gonna be a mess.
Big air quotes.
Yeah.
Is my evening relaxed? Do I have time and space for this? If I don't put that
No.
pressure. Don't
say
set
we're
yourself
making
up,
muffins.
Don't
Yeah.
set yourself up to fail. Joking about the muffins. I have a box of like Simple Mills muffin mix that I've had from 3 trips to LA now that we've still not gotten to. So I need to make the time for that with her. But don't put that pressure on yourself. Know it's going to be a mess. And again, that time and maybe one day a week.
Yeah,
Great.
exactly.
Great.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, we have Shabbat that we're gradually bringing back in those terms.
Are you in town this Friday?
No, we leave on Thursday.
Okay.
I would have
We're bringing
loved to
back our
have done
Shabbat luck. And so everyone
next
brings
trip.
a dish. Yeah. We're
Amazing.
trying to do it more often. So let us know when you're here next time.
Well, that's why my husband loves our Jewish faith so much because Shabbat is built into the
Shabbat
into
is
the ritual.
magic.
So
Totally.
those of you who don't know, it's 24 hours that you shut everything down essentially, and it's family time. And there's different levels you can do, of course,
Sure.
with shutting off electronics and not using elevators and things like that. But even just for my husband and I, it's like getting the phones out for a night,
Exactly.
having a dinner, and thinking really, how can we make this day restful? And that's something that my husband and I recently, in the last 2 months, I would say, have really shifted on our weekends. It used to be, how many activities are we doing? And it's like, we're going to pick one thing each day. And guess what we're going to do the rest of the day? We're going to lay on the couch.
Yeah, relax.
We're going to do nothing.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
are going to recharge. Oh, that's what this looks like. I'm so tired of running around,
I know.
like a crazy person. That's all we'd been doing. And it's fulfilling, right? We do these amazing things. We go to Domino Park, this new park that opened by us. We're checking out this music class, but it's still too
It's draining.
Yeah.
much.
It's draining. So, and especially if you never get a break. If it's every single day you're on, then it's not fulfilling anymore. Then it's just draining
Exactly.
you.
It's
if
just
you
plans.
if you can do it for fun 5 days a week, and then you can really enjoy it, and then you can miss it again if you take a 2-day break.
What has that been like? Because you just started touching on it. So both entrepreneurs, were you from the get-go, were you coaching people around health from the beginning, or was there a shift for you? How did you get to this?
Yeah, so my husband is a mortgage broker and has an office and employees in New York and an office and employees in LA. And we both used to live here. So he started that here and he does mortgages out of California. And so we kind of need to be back and forth. So that's his life. And for my work, I started this about 10 years ago. I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition 10 years ago and started my coaching practice. And prior to that, I had been working in nonprofit land. I went to school actually for international relations and political philosophy with a minor in geology.
Oh, wow.
I know I was going to be an international criminal court lawyer. So not that dissimilar in the sense that I always wanted to help people. I always knew that wherever I was
Such a Libra.
Wherever I was going to be working, it was going to be with that aim and that goal, that it wasn't just going to be about money or moving money around or, whatever. It was going to be that there was a direct correlation to something like that. And so I'd always worked in nonprofits. I did some productions, film festival work for documentary film festivals. And then eventually I found my way. I'd always loved food and wellness, but I started getting into cooking from the Santa Monica farmers markets because my husband was living there at the time. And I started making us these foods and realizing how different it was to be nourishing myself from Trader Joe's, like pre-made stuff versus like going there and like, what are we having for dinner tonight? And I just have such fond memories of, him doing the dishes and me sitting on his washing machine, like chatting with him. And then we go for a walk after. And it was just memories made around food. And my friend suggested that I check out this school, and I went, and truthfully, I had no plans to be in the business of wellness. I knew the least at school. I had never eaten kale. I didn't know what a goji berry was. I'd been to Whole Foods once. I was just not that girl. And I learned over time and at school. And I'm a very good student. And so they taught you how to be a health coach. They taught you how to have your own business. So I did what I was told. And that was a gift for me because I didn't question it. I, of course, questioned myself. Am I good enough? Do I know enough? But I still plowed forward and just kept doing the outlines, doing the talks until a couple of years into it, I felt confident enough in myself to make it my own. But yeah, so I started and I began coaching, and now I run group programs and have my books, and I get to help people in like really in this one-to-one and in group environment space. And also, a shout out to social media. I know we're all trying to manage it and find our way with it, but how incredible that I get to connect with so many of you on social media, that I get these messages on Instagram like, this changed my life. This has changed my morning. My child asks for your power parfait. Breakfast used to be such a struggle. And like, wow.
Yeah.
Like this is helping. And again, it's not just about the food or having a calmer morning. It's helping people feel like they are in their bodies, that they're in their lives. And look, life's still happening around us, right? Do I have shitty weeks? Plenty of shitty weeks, plenty of shitty days. Fight with my husband. Everyone's like, oh, you guys seem so perfect. I'm like, we fight all the time. Like we're not, we're one of those couples. We're both have a lot of fire in our jars, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But it's really about, again, even if I'm fighting, I'm in my life. I'm aware this is happening. What's off? What needs to shift? What conversations do I have to have?
You're present
it's about
to
that,
it.
Yeah, it's that consciousness, even in the muck and the mire. That allows me to continue to do work like this that does ask so much of myself, that asks so much of my husband and his work. There isn't a set income in our lives. There isn't, set structure in that way. And
there's no 401k coming.
Yeah,
right?
We have to create that all ourselves. Yeah. But you know what? I realized like we attracted each other for a reason. And when he met me, I didn't go to nutrition school at the time. I was working at a nonprofit. I was working at City of Hope, actually in Los Angeles, helping with their cancer walk, doing development for that and fundraising. So, he didn't know that I was about to become this whole thing that I'd become and the journey that I was going to go on. And it's just very interesting to see that we clearly attract each other for a reason. We clearly, I push him. He likes balance and order and being in the same place, but clearly there's a piece of his soul that likes to travel and likes chaos and things being disrupted. And that's where I come in. I'm all the chaos. And even in our dating life, he's like, girl, you are too much sometimes. I'm like, I know, but that's who I am, and it's not going away. But I can also still create the balance and the structure and the order too.
Awesome. That's beautiful. That's what the point is. That's the point.
Yeah. And I think, you talk about social media. I think there's a value to being able to have these conversations and then be also transparent on social media, because the way people used to acquire their information was all packaged. And not that social media is 100% reality, but we're all not as good at pretending, right? Like when I say professional celebrities, and I have it in air quotes here, whether it's the Kardashians, whatever it is you want to look at, everything you see is very well positioned and marketed. It's still not to the level that it used to be, where all you got was TV shows and magazines, and all you got to see was what people wanted you to hear. And I think people really developed a completely unhealthy sense of what their goals are and what they're trying to achieve. You talked about...
It's like the old magazines. It's where I used to take my goals from.
You're trying to look at the magazine and go, and that's what women look like, because the women around you look like normal people. But everybody was striving to look like the magazines. And now, if you go on social media and you want to look at plus-sized models to look at what that looks like, it's available without you having to dig like crazy like you used to back in the day. if you want, whatever it is, if your ethnicity, your line of work, whatever it is, there's somebody that you can expose to. And yes, the bigger you get, the more you control your image to some extent. But that's why Sophie and I started Ignited. That's why we like talking to our guests about what their life actually looks like. Is I think the veil of perfection is slowly lifting. And so, of course, you and your husband fight. And it's not just because you guys are fiery. It's because you're a couple. Like, couples fight.
Because life's a lot sometimes.
You live together, life's a lot, and you have a child.
I know. I always say to him, too, in like certain fights, I'm like, I need you to be a better roommate.
Yeah.
Like, this has nothing to do with me and my husband, partner, best friend, lover, or whatever.
I
It's like, I actually just need you in the roommate category to get the underwear closer to the bin. Just closer.
Step it up.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like, look, couples fight. I actually get worried about couples who don't fight. Because if you're not fighting, you're pretending everything is okay. It's not. Like, there's shit. I was just talking to a friend just yesterday, and there's this thing that he hasn't talked to his partner about in a really, really long time. And we don't see each other a lot, so it's not like he and I get to talk about this a lot, but he hasn't shared it. And he hasn't shared it because he was afraid of the consequences, et cetera. And I go, you got to figure out a way to talk about this, man. Whether it's with me or you can't just keep this locked in your head. Because the reason you're not fighting about this, or the reason you're not discussing this or debating it or however you want to talk about it, is just because you're holding on to it. But that's making things worse. And so to have you, for people who bought your book, or people who bought both of your books, people who see you, people who are in your programs, it's important for them to know that you live a normal life. Because that way the barometer of what is good for them becomes normalized versus this, oh yeah, my husband and I have perfect meals every day at home. And sometimes I cook, sometimes he cooks. The baby is always quiet during the meal, which is really nice, right? Like, but that's what the 40s and 50s were presented like.
Yeah.
And everybody just thought, kids don't speak when you don't speak to them, all that crap. I think that to me is the healthiest part of social media. I'm not saying it's all like that, but that's the healthiest part that we bring to it. Because when we get the DMs and we get the messages from people who've been affected, that makes all the work worth it, right? That makes all the travel worth it, all the social media photos that you have to take, all that stuff, because you're looking to make an impact on somebody's life. I think the impact gets bigger and better when we don't pretend like we're perfect.
And it's funny, as you're saying that about, seeing that I have a realness in my life and in social media, my like most darling coaching program is called the Rockstar Coaching Collective. And I created it over a year ago. And it's my highest, deepest way to work with me. It's a group of women. We meet on Zoom every single week. But I'm realizing now is partially why I think I created that program was to have a place where I had to show up exactly as I am. Mm-hmm. So it's a live, real-time call every single week.
I do one of those, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, yes, it's for them, but it's for me because I have to show up. If I'm having a crap day, crap night, it's there. And no, it's not to me to, share about my problems. That's not the point. It's just the action of I need to show up means that they need to show up.
It's accountability.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's been incredible. It's, the women in the program are amazing, but it's been such an incredible gift for me because if I can do that, no matter what's going on, I can do anything.
Yeah.
And what's that called?
The Rockstar Coaching Collective.
Cool. So you have a few different training programs that people can access online. We'll have links to them in the show notes along with the books, etc. What's your next year looking like? What do you have on the horizon?
So I'm definitely hungry to write my next book, but everybody on my team,
God, you're crazy.
I know they're like, slow down, calm down. I'm like, but I have so much to say. It's bursting out of me. So I would love to work on a book this next year. We'll see if that happens. I'm going to try and slow my roll a little bit. A little more family planning. Yay. I'll hint at that. We'll see. Maybe end of the, I don't know. We'll see. I'm starting to sweat immediately as I started saying that. I want the babies. I just don't feel the need to
shift the life
and be pregnant and birth them myself. I'm like, I got lucky the first time. So that's my whole journey, which I will share about and talk about. But that's on the horizon and really just continuing this. I've created a life now in my business that feels very strong and very stable. And I don't feel the need to add new things. It's just things are good. I've built out my team. They're incredible. Just keep doing this. Let yourself, I always want to create new and I always want to what's the next thing? And it's hey, Robyn, stand where you are.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Stand where you
Yeah.
are, because it's awesome and you've worked for years to build to here.
Right,
so
right.
just like, right? Like what
like-
trips do you want to put on the calendar? We're going to do a month. We're going to do 1 month. Well, we still have one child. We're going to do a month. I think we're going to split it between either Australia or Bali and then Costa
Nice.
Rica for a couple weeks. Cause I like told him
Yay.
that
So it's
my
like-
husband was a passion of mine.
You hit your number on the scale, and now just be okay with it.
Enjoy
Like,
it.
just be okay with it, right?
Enjoy it. Like, yeah. So I do want to create a new program for moms. At some point, I'm going to talk about that.
Fun.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
Exciting.
Yeah.
So we have some questions that we ask all our guests.
Okay.
The first one is, what is the best advice that you have ever received?
Honestly, it just popped in my head again. This is my intuition. When I went to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, Joshua Rosenthal, the founder, said in one of the classes I went to when it was live, life is a long time. And yes, that's kind of like a universe, who knows, but let's assume that that's true. Like every part of my body just started to breathe and be like, okay, all the things I want, I can take decades to create them. And that's okay.
Totally.
And it just like,
There's no
it just
rush.
calmed me the F down, and
That's
it
nice.
still does.
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's
I'm gonna hold
awesome.
on
Such
to
a good
that.
one.
Yeah.
Life is a long time.
What has been your proudest moment?
Giving birth to my daughter.
Nothing like it.
Yeah, I could cry.
I know.
Because it was, I know, I cannot, because it just had so much fear around it. And it just goes to show that like, we talk a lot about manifesting and the vision. I was not that great with that. I was so nervous and so scared, but I knew I wanted to have her without medication. Did not have an epidural, and I have a heart condition actually. So all the doctors were on me. I was in high risk, and I was just, so you think you're going to have this baby naturally? That's funny. Like that was everything that was
wow.
coming at me. And the fact that I was like, F you, I'll show you what I can do.
Intuition.
And I did. And
Mama
it,
knew.
Yeah, and it worked. And I was very fortunate that things went well and she was happy and healthy. And, I definitely had a recovery, but it went as well as it could. And breastfeeding I was committed to and went as well as it could. And I'm still nursing her 2.5 years later. And I'm just like, that moment, it changes you. It changes you in your bones, in your soul, and you can have these, go on a retreat and have an experience that adds a layer, but there is something like at the center of the earth in childbirth or some birthing experience that's close to that really does change you and changed me forever.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Thanks for articulating that. Let's all go cry. We stare at the newborn.
I'm going to go smell your baby and cry.
Well, we're gonna flip it on that one because what's
Okay.
been your hardest moment to date?
Hardest moment.
Childbirth.
Similar. I was going to say, no, it was really the month leading up to having my baby because I had high blood pressure. They wanted to induce me a month early, and everything in my intuition was like, that's not necessary. She's fine. And mind you, I was not being negligent or, I was very careful. I said, what's the details here? I got all the information. I checked my blood pressure 4 times a day and sent her the
wow.
numbers. Like I was like, I've got this. But really the doctors, just this general veil of you're crazy for thinking that you're going to be able to go into labor naturally, that this is going to be fine. You're not going to be induced. You're not going to be, just all this fear. And I remember I had this vision in that month of me as like a warrior with this baby on my back and like a machete. And I'm like, I got this, guys. Like I know what I'm doing. And just for anybody listening, like there is a power of education. I want you to be responsible in your pregnancy process and your labor and delivery. But if your intuition is telling you something else, I called my mother-in-law's friend who is a doctor in Florida.
Yeah.
And I said, here's the details. Here's this, like I gave him all the medical information. He's like, I just was like, I need another opinion. He's like, I think you can see what happens.
Yeah.
But if your intuition is telling you the opposite, go for it. But my intuition was screaming at me that she's fine. She's not done.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was funny because the night before I went into labor, the day before I went and visited the doctor, and she went to strip my membranes without my permission.
Oh my God.
If anybody knows of this, it's a little like procedure that they do and it can induce labor. And I was like, stop, like literally stop. And then that's when she said to me, so you think I was like, my due date's not for a week. Like
Wow.
I'm fine here, so just, that was tough.
No, I feel you.
Because of course I questioned myself, even though my intuition was talking to me, I still questioned myself, but I knew it in my soul and I was right. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the key about intuition is that you have to keep listening and following it no matter what.
Yeah.
In anything.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. What are your self-care rituals, or what is your self-care like number one ritual?
I have a recent love of meditation. I know a lot of people talk about that. Sometimes it's only like a minute while I'm peeing in the morning on the toilet, but just some moment where I take a few deep breaths and connect to myself and quiet it down. I resist it so much, but every time I always get that reminder in the middle of it. Again, no matter how long it is, like, oh, you love this. Just always say yes. Always say yes. I try and journal a little bit. Having a huge glass of water before anything in my day to make sure I'm starting hydrated, and really just listening to my intuition. Like before I do anything, I ask myself what I want, what I need. Do I have a vision on it? And even if it's something that's very routine in my day, I still ask.
Yeah.
So that, like you said, the more you hear it, the more you'll get those hits. So for me, I'm like always working that muscle. I'm always checking in. And that is a ritual.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a practice.
Yeah, mindfulness is not easy. I think in general, rituals are not easy for people to start adopting, but you just end up being so worthwhile. I love that you just mentioned that you can meditate for a minute while you pee.
Yeah,
you can.
Like,
I do it in the car.
It's all good.
Before.
Yeah, stop setting a parameter for yourself of like, I got to meditate perfectly. I got to have 20 minutes.
No, it's just like
sitting on a pillow, cross-legged with dead silence around me.
It's just connecting to inward. Like I'll do it when the kids are all in the car and I'm like, baby's crying and the kid, and I'm just like, I stand outside. I can barely hear them from outside. I take a couple breaths and then I enter back in. I'm like, okay, what can I do to shift this? Okay, I'm going to put on baby music. I'm going to do this. I'm going to talk to them this way. We're going to play a game. Like it's always how you bring yourself to the equation and the experience. It's not the experience. It's what you bring to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Last question.
Oh, yeah.
What is it that ignites you?
Ooh, what ignites me? Really those aha moments for my clients. When they come to me and they're like, this was how my life was and this shifted everything for me. And now I have so many testimonials in the book because it really is just those moments when it changes for someone and you can't go back. There's always these stages, right? There's no there, but there's always this growth of development and these other layers. And so getting this new layer in your life where it feels like you can do it or you feel empowered, you feel ignited, like that's everything. And hearing that in my work, it's like, okay, it's all worth it. All the management, all the text messages of my nanny and my help and my computer hours and my daughter pulling at me saying, don't go, mommy, don't go. You know, and I'm like, but I just spent the whole morning with, like all of that chaos and movement and growth and shifts and listening to my feelings and my emotions and connecting with my husband. It's all worth it in that the work works.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think that's what we all do. And every time we get somebody who does coaching or anything like that, that's almost always the message in the end. Making the difference.
It's true.
Is what ignites
that's who I am. And so they allow me to be who I am in this world, which is what's a better gift than that?
What is
I love it. So
beautiful.
The new book, recently new book, Thin From Within. We'll have a link to that. We'll have a link to your first book. We'll have a link to your coaching programs and all those things. Thank you so much for coming to our house and doing this with us.
Your home's beautiful. Thank you for having me.
An honor.
And I look forward to following these 12 months for you.
Yeah, I know. We'll see what happens.
I know. I think we got a sneak preview.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Bye. Thank you, everybody, for listening to the Ignited podcast. We were so happy to have you along for this ride. Please go and subscribe to this. Leave us a review. We love hearing from you. And if you want more, don't forget to go to ignited.com, where all the podcast episodes are available with show notes and so many of the little details and links from each one of these interviews. And you can look at all the future events that we have going on, all the things that make Ignited so special, even beyond this recording. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We will see you next week.